Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday Night Bible Study. I'm Pastor Dave Sain, Senior Shepherd here at Living Manna Church. It's Wednesday night, which means it's Bible study for us. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Just a couple of commercials I want to go to. I got a really neat study for you guys tonight. I want to hurry up and get through this stuff and jump into it. Got a lot of stuff I want to tell you. And so to do that, commercials first. If the first time you're hanging out with us, if you haven't watched us before, or if you are not subscribed, please do that. You can hit the subscribe button. You can hit that bell, be notified every time that we go live. And it will also help us if you hit the like button after you listen to the message. If you like it, if you enjoy it, all of our messages, all the things we do, please hit that like button. Even if you hit it before, every time you watch, hit it again and again and again. It'll help us out with the algorithm, hoping that more people will be able to see this type of content and become part of LMC. You can also watch us, of course, by downloading our app and watch us live on the app. All the notes are available both on YouTube and, of course, on the app. But on the app, you can get our hidden manna, you can get our chat rooms, all sorts of other things that go on within our fellowship are available through our app. So we invite you to do that. You can download that. And with that, I think that's all the commercials for today. I'm really excited. I got some really neat stuff I want to share with you. I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can so we can get to the good stuff for tonight. But it's a good evening here. It's cold here in the Northeast, and it's probably actually it's cold all over America. I saw the map before. Everybody's cold. So, but we're going to be warmed up tonight. We're going to get into Abba's Word, open it up, and to do that, let's open up with a word of prayer. Abba, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that's willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Okay, so I know I'm rushing along tonight, but I got so much I want to share with you guys. The topic for tonight, of course, we're continuing in the story of the name, the mark, and the number. So I have no idea what number this is. We've been going for some weeks now. So it's called the name, the mark, and the number. And then each one of the messages has its own name, its own subtitle. And the subtitle for tonight if you guys saw it on your, I'm sorry, I had to scroll that twice, is bows, arrows, and a sword. Bows, arrows, and a sword. So the mark, the name, the number, that's like the overall concept. And each message is just a little bit different, but dealing with those particular things. To start off with, here is our opening verse for tonight. Comes out of the book of Revelation, chapter 6, and verses 1 and 2. And it says the following. And when I saw the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, come and see. And I looked, and I saw a white horse, and he who sat on it, holding a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. All right, as I said, topic and title for tonight is bows and arrows. Bows, arrows, and a sword. We've been talking about, Revelation for a while. We've been talking about all sorts of different topics, about the name and stuff. So go back and check out the older studies. This really, I guess, this really isn't sort of a study for a beginner. Like if you're just starting off in Abba, this is probably not the best study to listen to. You really ought to get into the basics, get into the 101, understand who you are, who the master is, so forth and so on. But this is definitely a study for people who have been in the Word for a while. And honestly, I guess anybody could listen to it. Who knows if I'll open up your mind. But certainly it's for the mature-minded. Because some of the things that we've been sharing, some of the things that we've been talking about, they're pretty out there. It's kind of wild. And it's going to really sort of bring us to a decision, which is really kind of what I wanted to do today, is bring us to a decision. Because we've been going through this for, like I said, for weeks now. And at this point, I got to ask you, what is the true story? I mean, with everything that we've been hearing, with all the stuff that we've been going over, and I know, we've been listening to messages. You guys, I'm sure, have been listening to messages and teachings from all sorts of other people all over the years that maybe you've been, pursuing Abba. So what is the actual true story? So here up on the screen, let me make this a little bit bigger for all of you guys. Don't forget that the notes are available if you want to download the notes. You can get them on the YouTube description box or as well in the app. Both of them should be there. So what's the true story? Either, and this is really sort of just a summary of what the modern religious world around us is kind of, at least for now, is the eschatological outline. It's not 100% detailed, but basically the eschatological, the end times outline within the modern religious world today. And it's this, and here it is. You guys can see it up on the screen there. Comes down to a couple of points. So is this the true story? That an antichrist is coming, who, for, again, across the board, the majority of groups putting forward this idea, that some sort of a political leader in the future, whether it's in the last couple of years, 5 years, 7 years, 3.5 years, whatever the time frame is, that at some point a political leader of the world is going to come. And we're not going to be able to know his name, I guess, until that point, or if we ever figure out what the name is in Gematria. Gematria is sort of an alphanumeric coding thing that is used to try to figure out a name. And so people are using all sorts of alphanumeric codes to try to figure out who can be the Antichrist. But at any rate, the idea that there is an Antichrist coming in the future, a political leader, and this political leader at some point will enter a rebuilt Jewish temple, which means, evidently, there has to be a rebuilt Jewish temple. And you can see some of the pictures down there. I got some pictures here. You can see the red heifer here. Just threw that in there just to sort of give you a mental reference, because this is what you hear a lot of right now. There is a red heifer. Everybody's trying to figure out, is it accurate? Is the red heifer good? Does it have any blemishes on it? Can it be used to sanctify a new temple? All that kind of stuff. So that would have to be done first. But at any rate, this individual, whoever he is would enter into a rebuilt Jewish temple, and that he would proclaim himself God. Or I guess maybe you should say Christ, or I guess it's kind of the same thing as far as the modern religious world is concerned. That he would proclaim himself Christ in place of or in opposition to Jesus, i.e. the idea of a antichrist. And that this individual, upon doing this and using signs and wonders, will get the entire world to worship him. Now realize what we're talking about. We say the entire world. You're talking about Christian, you're talking about Muslim, you're talking about Sikh, you're talking about Buddhist, you're talking about atheist, at least a large portion Hindu, a large portion of all of those groups of people will worship this individual as the Christ, as the Mahdi, whatever name that you want to give to him. He will command the world through signs and wonders. And that this individual will create, or at least the organization with him, but it's kind of associated with him, that he will create some sort of an identification system, a mark, that without this mark, there will be no buying and no selling. And you can see on the picture there, and I'm sure you guys have heard all sorts of crazy things out there. Here's, the idea of the shot. That was a big thing just recently, is the shot, the mark. I mean, and it's kind of crazy because, you look at some of this, and if you squint the right way, you look at it in the right sort of sunlight, you can sort of maybe possibly make the case that, well, look, people lost their jobs, people lost their careers because they wouldn't take a particular experimental medication. That's the mark of the beast. It's kind of crazy because I think New York State just passed a law of forced, what is that called? Not immunization. Well, I guess it would wind up being forced immunization, but separation, quarantining, forced quarantining. Law just passed that the state is going to have the right to quarantine you for as long a time as they deem necessary. Pull you out of your house, pull you out of your job, if you don't comply with whatever the recommended health requirements are. Now, how that's going to work out, this is basically what we saw in Australia and New Zealand and in China. But be that as it may, the idea is that there is this entity, at least if you look at the right at a certain angle, well, it kind of sounds like that in fact, this is a way of identifying or some sort of digital ID or also, and those things are definitely coming. There's no way that those things are not coming. That is absolutely part. But in regards to this religious concept, that something is going to be done to mark people. And if you do not comply with that mark, you will be, well, here it is, you'll be killed. Not thrown into a quarantine camp, which is bad enough, but you'll be killed for those who won't comply. And that will be the Great Tribulation. And this Great Tribulation, this taking over of the world by this individual who is God or claims to be God, leads a global revolt against the God of Christianity, Jesus, until Jesus returns to set up his kingdom. And I think it was, what is his name? I can't think of his name for a second. I can't think of the guy's name. One of the conservative kind of off the wall sort of speakers. The new thing is now that Alex Jones, it doesn't get more off the wall than Alex Jones. Alex Jones believes that Trump is in fact the Antichrist, and he's going to come to power and he's going to do all these things. And there's people that are, backing up Alex Jones on this and saying, yeah, we could see that. And of course, you guys know the deal. Every president that there's ever been and multiple peoples and kings and et cetera, everybody's trying to figure out, is that the Antichrist? Of course, I guess his name would have to fit into the gematria somehow, but however that works out. But the question is that the story? Is that the true story? Now, granted, that story makes for a really good movie, and that's what this is up here. I don't know if you can see that there. This is actually a movie. And I'm sure that, it's a whole bunch of other ones I could have found. I forgot what the series is called. Left Behind. Left Behind. You put up all the pictures of Left Behind. It makes for a good movie. It really does. It's a neat story for a good movie, for a good sci-fi movie. But is that the story? With all the stuff we've gone over, with all the proofs we've given, with everything that we've ironed out, is that the story? Because if we still sort of look to that as the story, at least that is a possibility, we're missing some really, really important stuff. So is that the truth? Is that the story? Or is this the story? And of course, this is just a summary, not tremendously detailed, but a summary based on all the things that we've talked about many, 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 many weeks now. Is the story really not a political leader that's coming, but a religion that has already come? A beast, not an antichrist, not an anti-anointed one, an anti-Messiah. Messiah meaning King of the Jews, the anointed King of Israel, who brings a different gospel. So is a story about an anti-Messiah who is against the anointed King of Israel and brings a different gospel. Similar, but different. Is the story about a beast, this religion, that will mix all of the pagan religions of the nations while rejecting Abba, or God's law, his feasts, and even his saints, whether it be the Hebrews of old or saints in the current time. Invited, excuse me, and that this beast, this anti-Messiah, will be invited to enter into the true temple of Elohim. Elohim does not dwell in a building made with hands. Elohim dwells in the hearts of men. Well, the story of this beast is that it will dwell in the hearts of men, being proclaimed as Elohim. The true story is that the beast removes Abba's law, his calendar, and this beast, this religion, would create a mark, a symbol, an idol that is forced to be worshipped. And if not, there will be no buying and selling. And to disobey or not comply, unlike just being thrown in a quarantine camp, would mean death. And this beast would create pagan feasts instead of, or in place of, the feast of Abba, and replace the calendar. And this beast would conquer the world, as well as deceive the world. Is the true story this beast, whose name is not found in Gematria, but is a monogram, a pictogram, to identify him and the one empowering him and his followers worldwide throughout history, spawning eventually another beast like this one, who I'm assuming just does all the same things this beast does as well. Is the true story about a beast who persecutes believers in the Jewish Hebrew Messiah through a time known of as the Great Tribulation. And eventually is the story that this beast, this prophet, those who speak for this beast, this religion, are to be destroyed by the anointed King of Israel, the Mashiach, the Messiah. Now, obviously, if you've been hanging out with me any amount of time, you know that B is the concept that we've been talking about for many, 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 many weeks. Is this the story? Does this reflect the totality of Scripture? And more than that, history itself. Because that's really what wisdom is. And it talks about us having an ear, an eye to see, an ear to hear, a heart to understand. It's to understand the Torah, the stories that have come before. It's to obviously understand who Messiah is and the things that he said, which are all according to the Torah. And it is to, from our perspective, so many years after Messiah, to have an understanding, a command of history. Put those things together, and all of a sudden, you don't need gematria to figure this out. This has unplayed before us for about the last 1,700 years or so. Doesn't start right at the time of Messiah. Starts sometime after. It begins, certainly the rejection of who he is, the changing of the gospel begins by the end of the first century. But this thing, there's a saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, obviously it's about Rome, but Rome wasn't built in a day. It took time. And even this thing did not just happen in a day. This deception, this thing that we're going to read about in just a second in Revelation 13, this story as to which one is true, the one I'm posing to you that is true, did not just happen over a day or a week or a year or 10 years. This is something that took a couple of 100 years to really begin to form. And even after that, took a long time to become what it is today. And of course, you can see on the pictures there, we've got a whole bunch of different things. Of course, you've got the monogram. These are the monograms right here. You got the pictograms. You've got the two symbols. One, of course, from modern Christendom, right out of the Book of Revelation. The Chi Psi Sigma, and of course the in the name of Allah, the symbol that's above it. You've got the those are the monograms. You've got the pictogram here of who's in charge, the one that's behind this thing. And of course, we can show in history that these pictograms and these monograms have been part of this religious entity that really doesn't start until about 300 or so AD, as it appears today, uses exactly these particular monograms and pictograms to depict the one that's being worshipped. So this is obviously where we are. This is what I've been talking about for a while. Hope, and I'm saying we really do have to decide which one is true, because if the idea of we're waiting for somebody to come, okay, well, someone waiting for somebody to come, but if the other one's true, oh my goodness, we are in the middle of this thing, and nobody realizes it. We're in the forest. We're in the forest, and we cannot see the trees. Everything is just dark around us. But I do believe Abba is opening up eyes so that we can see these things. All right, so here we go. I know we've read this before. We're going to read it again. And again, the yellow is the PDP version. But I want to show you which story is correct just by using a portion of Revelation 13. Now, we've already talked about different parts of Revelation 13. We're going to talk about like the first 6, 7 verses for today. Again, this is the Scriptures version, so follow along with me on the screen. But here is, and pay real close attention to the yellow, because you're going to see one or the other story begin to be told. Because if you're talking about anti-Messiah, this is the chapter. Revelation 13 is the chapter that tells us about the coming anti-Messiah. Yes, Thessalonians does. Yes, 1 John does. It's in other places too. But the real authoritative, descriptive version of the coming deceiver, the anti-Messiah, the antichrist, as is said in modern religion, is Revelation 13. So what does Revelation 13 say? Or what view does Revelation 13 actually support? The idea of a political leader in the future using gematria, or the idea of a religion started by a state amongst the nations, mixing the things of the pagans with the things of Abba, creating a brand new religion that deceives the whole world. So here's Revelation 13:1. I know some of you guys are familiar with this, but bear with me. John says, "And I stood on the sand of the sea." Now, I think there's a play going on here. The word sea, S-E-A, means the nations. Yes, it obviously means a sea where there's fish and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Abba's giving us a metaphor here. It is the sea, but it means the religion of the nations, where the nations have come from. Later on in Revelation, it'll say that the sea is many nations and tribes and tongues and peoples. That's what the sea is, different nations, different religions from different nations. When you understand that, it makes it easier later on to understand the book of Revelation in the new heaven and the new earth, why there's no sea. There's no sea because there's no nations. There are no religions of the nations any longer. That is not here anymore. That is done away with. But that's later on in Revelation 20 or 21. Here, there's still the beast that comes out of the sea, that comes out of the nations. But it's also sort of a play on Dagon. Dagon is the god, one of the gods of the nations that comes out of the sea. We'll deal with him a little bit more next week, but I just wanted to mention that. So he stood on the sand of the sea, the nations, and I saw a beast, a religion from the nations, coming up out of the sea, the pagan religion of the nations. Shouldn't be unfamiliar to you. We've talked about this. So I'm skipping a couple of verses just for time's sake for today. So verse 3 says, and I saw one of the heads, Babylon, Tammuz, of his heads as having been slain to death, and his deadly wound was healed. This is the story of Tammuz, the 40 days of weeping, and Ishtar raising him from the dead on Ishtar morning at a sunrise service. And the celebration or the sacrifice of that is the Ishtar pig. This is a type of, or this is a copy, if you would, of the nations and a resurrection. And Tammuz isn't the only one that does this. Many of the gods of antiquity have a similar type of story. But Tammuz is the big one. That's the first one. It says, and all the earth marveled after the beast. I'm on verse 4 here so you guys can see. I'll put it in pink. It says, and they worshiped the dragon. The dragon, of course, is Satan or the serpent, who gave, now I put this in a color so you guys would notice this. I'm gonna go back to this in a second. But the dragon gives authority to the religions of men, to all the prior religions that came. This is the book of Daniel, and even before that, all the religions of men. Their authority is given to them by Satan, by the deceiver, by the serpent. Verse 6 then says, and he, the nations, the dragon, the religions, open his or their mouth in blasphemies against Elohim. So this religion of the nations does not like the God of Elohim. And I put the PDP version in there so that you really kind of hone in on what's being said. When it says that these beasts blaspheme Elohim, we know, or we should understand, it's not just talking about a generic God. It's not talking about, one of the gazillion other different gods that men have worshiped. By the word Elohim, it means the God of Israel. As Abba refers to himself many, many, many times throughout the Torah and the prophets, that he is the God of Israel, or the Elohim of Israel. So this entity, at least this part of the entity, blasphemies against the God of Israel. Not any other God, the God of Israel. And what does it do? It blasphemes his name, wants to change, wants to hide the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, or Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Originally would have been said as Yahuwah. By the first century, it would have been pronounced as Yehovah. But it is that God of Israel, that this beast blasphemes against. So it blasphemes his name, it blasphemes him, the God of Israel, and his tent. The tent is his temple. Well, the tent we will refer to as the tabernacle of Moses, but it eventually becomes the temple. So these beasts, this beast coming up, these religions of men that come out of the nations are against the Elohim of Israel, are against the name of the Elohim of Israel, are against the temple of the Elohim of Israel. And it says, and those dwelling in the heaven. Now, you read that, and it kind of sounds, I'm just going to get rid of this, some of this so you guys can see. And those dwelling in heaven. Now, you read that, and this is the PDP version, so I'm just sort of going to give you my take on it. But it sounds kind of like you're saying that this entity is going to blaspheme, the idea is saints in heaven, or is it going to blaspheme angels in heaven? I think what it means by those in heaven is that it means Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem is, in fact, what we've learned this before, there are 3 Aliyah feasts, right? There are 3 times, according to the Torah of Moses, that an adult male has to make Aliyah, has to go to Jerusalem. That's for Passover. That's for Sukkot. That's for Passover. That's for Shavuot, and that's for Sukkot, for tabernacles. The 3 times a year you make Aliyah, and Aliyah means to go up. Well, where do you go up to? Well, you go to Jerusalem, and you go up Mount Zion. Jerusalem is on Mount Zion. It's one of the peaks, one of the plateaus as you walk up Mount Zion. You walk up Mount Zion, and on the on one level of the plateaus of Mount Zion is the temple, and the temple is the place where Abba's spirit was. So people who went to Jerusalem in a type, in a real type, were making an ascension, or they were playing out an ascension to heaven. They were playing out an ascension to approach the very throne room of Elohim, which is what we're all going to do, right? We're all going to make the ascension to the heavens. So when it says that he fought against Elohim, the Elohim of Israel, he fights against his name, that is the name Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, and his temple, and those dwelling in heaven, that is Jerusalem. That is the believers who make Aliyah, who understand, who are ascending to the mountain. So that's my take on it. You guys can certainly take a look at that, run through it yourselves. But that just, to me, just makes so much more sense as you're reading this. So there's some qualifications for this beast. Doesn't like the God of Israel. Doesn't like the people of Israel. Doesn't like the name of the God of Israel. Doesn't like the temple of the God of Israel. Wants nothing to do with any of that. It says, and it was given to him. Here's where some really important stuff starts to happen, guys. This is really sort of the core for today. And it was given to him to fight with the set-apart ones. Now, by set-apart ones, it means the Jews. It means Israel. It means the citizens of Israel, right? Today, you and I we consider ourselves citizens of Israel, so he's fighting against us as well. We're talking back in the day of John, right? So he fights against, it was given to him to fight against the set-apart ones who dwell in Jerusalem, who have a temple, who keep the name of Elohim, and who have the God, the Elohim of Israel. So it just sort of makes sense. But it wasn't just that he was given authority to fight with them. Look at what it says. And to overcome them. And certainly that has played out in history. We know that. I mean, that is just irrefutable. The people of the name, the people of the temple, the people of Jerusalem, the people of the God of Israel, historically and throughout history, have been overcome, at least for the last 1,700 years, been overcome. And Jerusalem's been trampled. And here it is again. So this entity now is able to overcome the saints, the set-apart ones. And here it is again. An authority. Authority was given to him over every tribe and tongue and nation, and all those dwelling on the earth, all the pagan religions, all the serpent is in charge of all the pagan religions, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the slain Lamb, from the foundation of the world shall worship him. So if you're worshiping these religions of the nations, this picture, this animal, this beast that John sees coming out of the sea, who are you actually worshiping? The dragon. You're worshiping the dragon. The dragon gives him the authority. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. Again, we talked about this last week. That means if you have an ear for the Torah, if you have an ear for the prophets, if you have an ear for the Gospels, and if you have an ear for history, you can begin to put all of this together. Verse 11, and I saw, so there's 6 beasts there, I saw another beast, a 7th beast, another religion of men. So all of this stuff is what the first beast does, or the first 6, what's been going on for a long time. 7th beast is going to do the same thing. And I saw a 7th beast, because he's part of the 7 beasts that come out, the 7 heads that come out of the sea. And I saw another beast, another religion of men, coming up out of the earth. I'm right here, guys, so you guys can follow along with me. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. He mimicked Messiah, because that's what it means, a lamb. A lamb is obviously a reference to the Messiah, to a sacrificial animal. This beast mimics the Messiah. Looks kind of, again, right light, squint your eye, looks kind of like the Messiah, sounds a little bit like the Messiah, but he had two horns like a lamb, but he spoke the doctrine. The word speak means the doctrines, the things that are said. He looks kind of like a lamb, but he spoke the doctrine. His doctrine, what he spoke, is lawless. The doctrine that he spoke is another gospel, a different gospel. And I don't want to go through all the verses. You guys can look them all up. How many times does Saul tell us, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this gospel, the gospel of the God of Israel, the gospel of the God of the temple that is now us, the name of the God of Israel, and the believers of the God, don't believe him. If we are an angel, he says, come and do it. And this is multiple times. So you guys can look that stuff up. Well, this is exactly what was going to happen. It was already beginning to happen at the end of the first century. But like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. Over history, it takes a while for this to really begin to snowball into this beast that we are reading about right here. So verse 12 says, and he exercises all the authorities. What is it? So here's that word authority has been popping up. I put it in orange, so it pops up again and again and again. He exercises all the authority. Now here I put the PDP version just to give it some context. By authority, it means he mixed all the religions, all the ceremonies, all the priesthoods, all the feasts, all the calendars, all the stories of the gods of the beast, of the nation that came before him. So when it says he takes all the authority of the first beast, it means he's taking all the religious authority that was already there in the nations, and he's going to mix it, because he looks like a lamb, he's going to mix it with the truth of Elohim, but it's going to become something very, very different. That does what? That overcomes the saints, overcomes the set-apart ones. So one more time, and he exercised right here in the orange, and he exercises all the authority, the mixed religions, the ceremonies, the priests, the feast, the calendar, all the stories of the first beast, the pagan religions, in his presence with this new religion of men that is popping up. And he causes the earth, all of the earth, during the days of tribulation, PDP version, and those who dwell in it, to worship the first beast. Well, if you're worshiping the first beast, you're worshiping who? The dragon. But it says here, the first beast whose deadly wound, that is the Tammuz resurrection, the whole Easter thing, was healed. All right. So does that story sound like a political leader coming in the future? Or can we find this in history? Is this something that has actually happened already, that we can look to and say, oh my goodness, this is what he was talking about, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Let's use wisdom and let's do exactly that. So authority was given. Seven different heads. The last one, of course, is the seventh beast. The history of the pagan gods. This particular story is about a religion that's going to come upon, that is going to be related to all the religions that came before it. And it is going to mix those into something else and take over the world. Now, of course, when you finish reading the rest of chapter 13, that's when it gets into the mark, the name, all the rest of that. We've done studies on that already, so you can go back and you can listen to that stuff and put it all together. But here's what I want to show you here. Guys, take a look. This is an awesome sort of concept to get into your mind. These are the major gods, the heads, if you would, of multiple religions throughout time, leading to what we just finished reading in the book of Revelation, chapter 13. And who's in charge of all of these things? The dragon is. These are the gods of the... Now, see, there's many, many other gods as well, but let's take a look at this. I'm right here, so you guys can follow me. I'm right here. That's actually an engraving of Tammuz. That's the Babylonian Tammuz. Now, I want you to notice something. On the Babylonian Tammuz, what is he doing? He's riding a horse, and he has a bow and arrow in his hand. That's Tammuz. And of course, that's the story. He's a great hunter. He's hunting the boar. He obviously misses the boar, maybe not such a great hunter. He misses the boar. The boar gores him. He dies. They weep for him for 40 days. On Easter morning, on Ishtar morning, at sunrise, as the sun rises, because he is the sun god, he comes back to life. Received a deadly wound, but it comes back to life. All right, so that's Tammuz. That's the Babylonian god. Here is Horus, or at least a picture of, an artist rendering of Horus, one of the gods of the Trinity of gods, because Tammuz is part of a Trinity of gods too, but Horus is also a part of a Trinity of gods of Egypt. And I want you to notice, what is Horus? Well, he's also a hunter. And what's he hunting with? A bow and arrow. Here is the god Asher, the third one there. That's a picture of the god Asher, and that's a depiction, from paintings and stuff or carvings and stuff. The god Asher of Assyria. These are the people who destroyed the northern house. And what is the god Asher doing? Well, hopefully you can tell there on the picture, he has a bow and an arrow in his hand. The one next to him is more of an artist rendering, but this is supposed to be Apollo, the Greek Apollo. Now, there's a Roman version of it later on too, but the Greek Apollo, the sun god. You can see the sun disk behind his head. And of course, what is Apollo doing? Well, he's shooting a bow and an arrow. Right next to it is the Greco-Roman, sort of the combination of the two, the Greco-Roman human/god man, Hercules. And this is an actual coin from the Greco-Roman period, and it's a coin of Hercules. And you can see, I don't know if you can see the definition in there, but Hercules is wearing the lion's mane. He kills a lion. He takes the mane. At least the story is, kills a lion. One of the tests of Hercules, and he's got the lion draped around him. And in this particular coin, he's shooting a bow and an arrow at Helios, actually. At Apollo, I'm sorry. At Apollo, he's shooting a bow and arrow at Apollo. And so that's an actual coin. So there's a picture of Hercules. And how is Hercules depicted? This of the gods of the nations as shooting a bow. This here is Helios. This is the fifth one. Let me get rid of some of this. This is Helios. And you can see Helios has a club in his hand. Again, it's the sun god. He rides in a chariot. He has the sun behind him. There's a whole bunch of different artist depictions of him. But this is Helios. And I want you to notice, hopefully you guys can see it, what he has in his hand right here. It's a bow. He's got a bow in his hands. And there's many other gods, obviously, that are depicted this way. As we're reading in Revelation what our opening verse was for today. Here it is right down here. Revelation 6:1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. This is the beginning, right? The beginning of the opening of the seals. The riders of the apocalypse, we're always told they are. And I heard one of the four living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, come and see. And I looked and I saw a white horse. And he who sat on it was holding a bow and a crown. Now I put the PDP version in there because I'm going to color code some of this stuff. You see there's blue, there's yellow. Obviously yellow is a PDP version. There's orange. I want to color code this so that we can make the connections here to see that Revelation 6 is telling us, or Revelation 13 is giving us more information about what Revelation 6:1 is telling us, one of the seals. It says, and I saw and I looked at my horse, and he who sat on it had a bow and a crown. What is a crown? A symbol of authority. And so authority was given to him to do what? He went out overcoming. Let's just say that another way. He went out conquering. He went out conquering and to conquer. Well, who's he conquering? We're going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to give you the PDP version. Who's he conquering? The set apart ones, the believers, the saints. This is a depiction of what in modern religious world we'd say Antichrist, but it's anti-Messiah. that this person is. This is the depiction of Revelation 13. Here's Revelation 13, verse 4, just a small piece of it so you can see that there's a connection here. And they worshiped the dragon, Satan, the serpent. Who did what? Who gave authority, a crown, to all the religions of men. So all of these religions, all of them, this is a really terrible drawing. This is kind of looks like a Burger King crown, but here are 7 crowns. Here are 7 different crowns. He gave authority, a crown, to the beast. And the nations, the religions, opened up their mouth in blasphemies against Elohim. What do all of these gods have in common? They hated the Jews, fought against the Jews, despised the temple, despised everything about them. And some of them actually wound up destroying the northern house and even the temples, doing the very things Revelation 13 says that the beast would do. And he opened up his mouth in blasphemies against Elohim to blaspheme his name and his tent and those dwelling in the heaven. And it was given to him to fight. Now I put it in orange there so that, it's color coded to this right up here. Because Revelation 6:1 says the one who's coming to conquer has a bow. Well, Revelation 13 says the one coming to conquer is going to conquer and fight. And I'm putting in there so you make the connection, fight with a bow and arrow. Who? The set apart ones. And just like it says here, to overcome them. I got too much green there. Let's use a different color. He was given authority. He had a bow. He is there to fight and to overcome them. And he overcomes them. Can you see that these verses are talking about the same set to you and I of historical events? To the people that it's being written to, they're in the future. Because remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take a couple of 100 years for this thing to snowball into this entity that it will become. And again, one more time, and he exercises. This is back at Revelation 13. And he exercises. I'm going to get rid of all their crowns. Sorry about that. I know my drawing's terrible. And he exercises all the authority, all the mixed religions, all the ceremonies, all the priests, all the feasts, all the calendars of the first beast. So it's talking about this beast. This beast uses all the authority, all the power that the other beast had, all their ceremonies, all their traditions, all their stories, all their holidays, how they set up priesthoods, all of that stuff is going to be balled up in this, the seventh beast. And now we can look at it on a chart. We can look at that in picture form and say, oh my goodness, yes, I'm hoping you guys can see the connection. So he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth during the days of tribulation and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So ultimately, this beast is having us worship that one. And what do we do? What is the very foundation of modern Christian religion? Easter. Easter is the whole 40 days of Lent, ending with Easter, and of course Christmas. That is the foundation. That is what this is talking about. This plays out in history, not just in some guy who's coming in the future, but in history. In history that is verifiable, both through scripture and through an understanding of history. And I want you to notice that this is obviously just a picture. I don't know, it kind of looks like he's asleep, but look at what the Pope has in his hand there. Now you say, oh, that's sort of a staff. He's got a wooden one too, and I saw some pictures of the wooden one. I don't know, sort of looks like a bow to me. Sort of looks like a bow. It's not strung, but it sort of looks like a bow. And all the other gods that have come before him had the same thing. So just kind of interesting to look at. take that for what it is, but hopefully you'll make some connections. All right, so he goes forth to conquer and to overcome. And I looked, and I saw a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow and a crown. Authority was given to him. He went out to overcoming and to overcome. So Revelation 13 tells us he takes all of the religious stuff that were part of the beast before, and he creates a brand new religion based on all of that stuff. Well, we would call that Roman Catholicism or Roman Christianity, the seedbed of all Christianity. It becomes the seedbed of all Christianity at what's called the Council of Nicaea. The concept of the structure of religion, the way we understand it today, even in the modern world, all denominations, all fellowships can trace their origin back to the Council of Nicaea. Because what winds up happening is Constantine gets together a group of people in Nicaea after he conquers the world, after he reunites the East and the West, after a civil war. He reunites the East, after killing his brother and killing his uncle and warring and worshiping the sun god, which he never stopped worshiping the sun god, all of that stuff. But he's the one responsible for getting together all of the, and I'm going to use the term sort of loosely here, believers, Christians of his day, the leaders, to get together. And amongst them, they hammered out what would become known as the Nicene Creed, a basic statement of fundamental beliefs, faith, that would encompass religion, that would encompass this understanding of who Messiah is. Now, think about this for a second. This is the Hebrew Messiah. This is the Messiah of the Jews. This is the Messiah who is the King of Israel, who serves the God, the Elohim of Israel, who is in the temple, who is part of Jerusalem. All the things that we already read in Revelation 13. None of that was part of the Council of Nicaea. As a matter of fact, and I'll go through some historical stuff, some quotes and stuff. It is mind-boggling what actually went on at the Council of Nicaea, because we're sort of given the picture that, it's bishops and presbyters, religious men who are walking in faith that have come to Nicaea to sort of iron out all the little different differences and come up with one fundamental statement of faith. And that is not what happened. That is not even close to what happened. That's what we're told. That's what most people believe. But I'm going to give you some quotes right out of the Catholic Encyclopedia. Guys, there's no, want to go to a horse's mouth, right out of the Catholic Encyclopedia. They're going to knock your socks off and you're going to say, oh my goodness, I never knew that. Anyway, Nimrod, not Nimrod. Well, yeah, I guess he's the one that starts all of this. But Constantine, he was a worshiper of Mithras, the sun god, Tammuz, Apollo, all different names of it, Helios. And his title was Sol Invictus, the invenerable sun. That is what he worshiped. That is who he was. So there's a story, of course, that before his conquest at the Milvian Bridge, that he looked up while looking at the sun. Well, why is he looking at the sun? Why is he looking up and praying towards the sun? Because he's a worshiper of Mithras, and that's what they do. They look towards the sun, or Apollo, whatever name you want to use. He looked towards the sun, and he sees a symbol in the sun, the symbol of a cross, the Chi-Rho, painted on all the. At least this is legend. Whether this actually happened, doubtful, very, very doubtful that any of this happened. This is sort of stuff, because what Rome did, just like any other nation out there, whoever wins the war, whoever the victor is, gets to write history, and Rome wrote history. And we just accepted all of it. So this idea that he had this experience at the Milvian Bridge, he actually does win, of course, reunites the nation, and many years later, he does this council at Nicaea to bring all of these different leaders together. But he was always Sol Invictus. He was always a worshiper of the sun. Whether the Milvian Bridge thing happened or not is debatable. So here's a quote. So we're under the assumption that, because this is around 300, 320, that the council actually happens. We're under the assumption that there is a religion called Christianity that is already functioning, already established, under that name. And you're going to find out in a second that, well, that's not actually played out in history. I know that's what we're told because who wrote the story? The victor did. Rome did. And all we've got are the latest parchments, the earliest scripts, the earliest texts that go to around the time of the Council of Nicaea. Incredibly, Rome burnt everything else. They burnt everything that came before that time, which obviously raises some eyebrows. You don't want people to know what was said before, you burn it. Now, that might not work today, but you burn it. So here's Eusebius. So this is around 371. So he was there. He was at the time of the Council of Nicaea. And look at what he says about what comes out of the Council of Nicaea. This is a quote on the Council of Nicaea by Eusebius of Caesarea, 371 CE. And he says, the religion, let me just highlight it here so you guys can see it. The religion of Jesus Christ, of course, that's the more modern English way of saying it. It would have been Jesucristo. The religion of Jesus Christ is neither new or strange. Wait a minute. The worship of the Hebrew Messiah is new. In their day, it would be new. But to Eusebius, he's saying, no, this isn't new. It's not new, and it's not strange. You're telling me the worship, learning to worship the God of Israel isn't a strange thing. It should be a strange thing, but it wasn't to them. Here's a quote from Augustine of Hippo, around 430 CE, actually earlier than that. I think that's probably about the time his life ends. This in our day, in his day, so during the time of the formation of what Rome did at the Council of Nicaea, of what Constantine did, this is our day. This in our day is the Christian religion, not as having been unknown in former times, but as having recently received that name. Wait a second. You're telling me Augustine of Hippo is saying that that name, Christian, was only recently being used? Since when? Since about the time of Constantine and the Council of Nicaea. Here's the Catholic Encyclopedia. This is the Farley edition, pages 370 to 71. So you guys want to get the book, you can look it up, read all this wonderful stuff. I'm only giving you little pieces of it. There's so much more. Just don't have time to go through all of the stuff. But listen to this. The British-born Flavius Constantinus, who authorized the compilation of the writings now called the New Testament. After the death of his father in 306, Constantine became king of Britain, Gaul, and Spain. And then after a series of victorious battles, killing his uncle and brothers and all the rest of that, the emperor of the Roman Empire, Christian historians give little or no hint of the turmoil of the times suspend Constantine in the air, free of all human events happening around him. So he just puts Christianity together. He just starts this. That's what they're saying. He says, no, it didn't happen like that. In truth, one of Constantine's main problems was the uncontrollable disorder among presbyters. Now, you read the word presbyter, and we just automatically have the modern Christian concept. Oh, presbyter, he's talking about preachers. He's talking about people that are sharing the gospel. That's not what presbyter means. Presbyters and their belief in numerous gods. So here's the Catholic Encyclopedia telling us the presbyters, the religious leaders of their day that he's going to bring together from all over the Roman Empire to sit down and to iron out what the worship of the God of Israel, even though they never use that term, refuse to use that term, do not call him the Hebrew Messiah. They don't, the people that are invited to come and sit at this Nicene Council, there's no Jews there. There's no Pharisees there. There's no rabbis there. There's no scribes there. There's no Netzarim there. They're not there. They're not invited to this. Who is part of this? The disorder among the presbyters and their belief in numerous gods. What gods? I don't want to go back to the picture, but all those gods we saw that came before. The majority of the modern-day Christian writers suppress the truth about the development of their religion and conceal Constantine's efforts to curb the disreputable character of the presbyters who are now called church fathers. This isn't me telling you this. This is the Catholic Encyclopedia telling us the history of what actually went on here at the Council of Nicaea. Doesn't end there here, guys. Let's check this out. This is, if I'm saying his name correct, Optatus of Milevis, chapter 1, verses 15 and 19. This is written by one of the church fathers in the 4th century. Listen to what he says about the Council of Nicaea. Clusters of presbyters, keeps using that word presbyter. Clusters of presbyters had developed many gods and many lords, and numerous religious sects existed, each differing in doctrines. The Presbyterians, or the Presbyterial, he means pagan groups, clashed over attributes of their various gods, and altar was set against altar in competing for an audience. These are the people who were invited to the Council of Nicaea. These are the people who came up with the actual doctrine out of the council, the creed of the Council of Nicaea. Again, Catholic Encyclopedia. This is the new edition, page 576. This is a quote. Constantine never acquired a solid theological knowledge of anything doing with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he depended heavily on his advisors in religious questions, who were pagan advisors. Eusebius, 260 to 339, time of his life. So he's living through this. I already quoted him before, but I'll quote him again. Listen to this. Constantine noted that among the Presbyterian, the pagan factions, strife had grown so serious, and this is Eusebius's quote, that vigorous action was necessary to establish a more religious state. So this is a quote from the book, The Life of Constantine, and he's quoting Eusebius. So the writer of The Life of Constantine is saying, Constantine noted that the Presbyterians, the pagan factions all over the empire, strife had grown so serious that, here's Eusebius's quote, vigorous action was necessary to establish a more religious state, i.e., the council at Nicaea. The writer goes on in The Life of Constantine, this is pages 26 to 28. He says, but he could not bring about a settlement between rival god factions. His advisors warned him that the presbyters, the pagan religions, were destitute of foundation and needed official stabilization. Constantine saw in this confused system of fragmented dogmas the opportunity to create a new and combined state religion, neutral in concept. So in other words, he's going to bring all of these different groups and all these different people who have all sorts of different views on the God, and maybe even people that do believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Gentiles over time. He's going to bring them all together and sit them all down together and have them iron out amongst themselves what is an acceptable way to worship God. This becomes the Nicene Council. It goes on to say, I'm right here so you guys can see me. It says, then ensure it through forced conversion and death for disobedience. So after this council is done, you either do what we say, you either convert to the thing that we have established as the now truth, or you die. And that's exactly what they did. Lots of people died. Lots of books were burnt. Lots of people were excommunicated. Lots of people were chased all over the place. Lots of people went into hiding to get away from this. There's a group of people called the Quatradecimeans. They are the Netzarim of their day. They wouldn't listen to the Nicene Council, because the Nicene Council said no more Sabbath, no more Passover, no more of those things. All that Jewish stuff is out. And these people, they were real believers, real, true, honest believers. Netzarim, they said they wouldn't do it. So what'd Rome do? Killed them. Killed them, went after them, burned their books, got rid of their leaders, their congregations, their fellowships, their synagogues, got rid of them. So it goes on to say, I'm right here again. It says, then to ensure it by forced conversion and death for disobedience. When he conquered the East in 324, he sent, so it's after 324 that the Council of Nicaea comes. He sent his Spanish religious advisor, Osius of Cordoba, to Alexandria with letters to several pagan bishops, exhorting them to make peace among themselves. So these are the people he's inviting to the Council of Nicaea, pagan bishops. The mission failed, and Constantine, probably at the suggestion of Osius, then issued a decree commanding all pagan presbyters and their subordinates, all the different factions and religions all out there, to be mounted on asses, mules, and horses belonging to the public, and forced to travel to the city of Nicaea in the Roman province of Bithynia in Asia Minor. Again, this is from the book on the life of Constantine, page 26 to 28. So what is Constantine doing? He's trying to bring together all the different religions in his nation. Yes, there is the Netzarim, there's the people that are really worshiping the one God, and there's lots and lots and lots and lots of other people that are worshiping many other different gods. And what's Constantine going to do? Not because he had some sort of experience with God, not because he saw Messiah. He saw a pagan symbol in the air of the God he already worshiped, and he's now, as a political leader, bringing them all together. Guys, this is no different as if Xi Jinping decided to get people together from Pakistan and Afghanistan and Russia and all these other places and get together and write the American Constitution. That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent. Get all of these people together from all of these different dictatorial, maddening nations, get them all together and have them write the American Constitution. That is the equivalent of what Constantine did. That is what the seedbed of modern religion is today. And it's no different. We've seen this movie. Guys, we've seen this movie. Look at the picture. Look at the picture right next to it. This is our modern age. This is today. And what are we doing today? The same thing Constantine did. This is a picture, of course, you see the picture right here. It's a picture of the Pope with monks and Islam and Hindus and Greek Orthodox and Russia and Sikhs and all sorts of groups. And what are they getting together for? Let's get together and let's work out a way that now it sounds good on the outside, that we can all, and here it is, that we can all coexist. Let's all coexist, right? And that's a bumper sticker. You might see cars with it out there, to coexist. Let's all get along. We all worship the same God anyway. There's many, many different ways to get to God, whatever group you may be coming from. Do you think things have changed, or have, as much as they have changed, they have actually remained the same? It's a movie we are watching today. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. My goodness. This, and I can spend like the next half an hour giving you quote after quote after quote after quote after quote after quote of what goes on at the Council of Nicaea and then what the results of it are. But who were the people that were invited? They were not believers, the vast majority of them, and those that were, of them, who represented the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Who represented Moses? Who represented the prophet like Moses? This was exactly what the book of Revelation tells us, that the seventh beast would have all the authority, all the culture, all the stories, all the ceremonies, all the feast days, all the priesthoods, all of this, all the stuff of the beast that came before it. And it would create something new. This new thing would take over the world. And if you don't adhere to it, you would die. which is exactly what the author here is telling us as well. This is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing to me. Eye-opening, but mind-blowing. Okay. So with that, again, I could spend a whole lot more time on it. Guys, it's all out there. It's not hidden. Get yourself a Catholic encyclopedia. Read through it. Get yourself some books on Constantine. Read through them. It's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. And yet this is what the modern religious world is based on. Here is a point. If this is the authority given to the beast based on all the religions that came, and with this he overcomes, if this is the rider on the white horse with the bow, as is Tammuz, that comes to conquer the set-apart ones. Well, you know what? Abba has a bow too. Abba has a bow, an arrow, and a sword. With that in mind, listen to these verses. Psalm 127, verses 1. It's actually the whole psalm. If Yah does not build the house, its builders. If Yah's not building the house, then it's man's religion. If Yah does not build the house, its builders, man's religion, have labored in vain. If Yah does not guard the city, the watchmen, the priests, has stayed awake in vain. In vain do they rise up early, sit up late to eat the bread of toil. Good religious works, doing good religious things. So he gives his beloved sleep. Look, children are an inheritance from Yah. So PDP version in here, sort of prophetic thinking, children. Well, what did Abba give us? He sends the Mashiach, the firstborn son from among the dead, to make you and I sons of Elohim. He has given us the authority to be sons of Elohim, not of the will of man, not of the will of the flesh, but of the will of Elohim. So he gives his beloved sleep. Look, children, the authority to become sons of Elohim, children, those children are an inheritance from Yah. The fruit of the womb is their reward. As arrows in the hand of a mighty one. The sons, the children, are arrows in the hand of the mighty one. So are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who has filled his quiver with them. They are not ashamed when they speak with their enemies in the gate. And Messiah tells us about our enemies in the gate, that the gates of hell, death itself, will not prevail against the sons of Elohim, those who profess the firstborn son. All of a sudden, you look at Psalm 127, and it's telling us something very, very different. So who's the arrow? Who's the bow? Well, Messiah is part of the weapon, but so are we. We are also part of the weapon. Listen to Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 9. It says, here, I'm right here, guys. Actually, right there. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. See your sovereign, your king, talking about the Messiah. This should be real familiar to you. It's the whole entry into Jerusalem thing, right? See your sovereign, Messiah, is coming to you. He is righteous and endowed with deliverance, humble and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. And I shall cut off the chariot. Well, what's a chariot? Chariot's a weapon of war. It's a tank, right? Today we'd say a tank. I will cut off the chariot, that which wars against you, that which is trying to overcome you. I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the horse, that which wars against them, from Jerusalem. And the battle bow shall be cut off. The battle against us, the military against us, the one on the horse against us with a bow, that will be cut off. The pagan religion, the white horse, will be cut off. This is talking about the story of Messiah. This is what Messiah is going to come and do. It doesn't end there. It says, and he, the Messiah, shall speak peace to the nations, and his rule from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. Also you, because of the blood of your covenant, that is the covenant brought by Messiah, I shall send your prisoners out of the pit. Resurrection. Return to the strongholds, you prisoners of the expectation, our faithful hope and expectation in resurrection. Even today, I declare that I return double to you, for I shall bend the bow of Judah for me. The bow is, well, he'll say bow in a second, but he means the bow of Judah. I shall bend Judah for me. I shall fill the bow with Ephraim. So Judah's the bow, Ephraim's the arrow. For I shall bend Judah for me, and I shall fill the bow with Ephraim, and I shall stir up your sons, O Zion. I'm going to make you guys bows and arrows. With what? The truth. Because what are sons in the quiver? A mighty, mighty army. I will stir you up, O sons of Zion, with the truth. Against who? Against your sons, O Greece, which in the day this was written was the fifth beast of the list of beasts that we saw, and all the gods that they worship, all holding a bow, hating the God of Israel, the name of the God of Israel, the temple of Israel, and the people, the citizenship of Israel. This is telling us Abba's going to do something even bigger and badder than they could imagine. You think authority was given to them? What about when Abba gives authority to his sons and daughters, what they will do? He says, I shall make you, meaning the Messiah, and I shall make you like the sword. So the bow and arrow is Ephraim and Judah against who? The sons of Greece, the authority given to that last beast from all the beasts that came before it. Like a sword of a mighty man, a warrior, and Yah shall appear for them, and his arrow, the Messiah, shall go forth like, so Messiah is an arrow, the Messiah is a sword. We are arrows, sons and daughters. We are also bows and arrows. And his arrow, Messiah, go forth like lightning. We know that verse, like lightning from east to west. And the master will sound, the master Yah will sound the shofar. War is coming. And he shall go with whirlwinds from the south. This is stuff we should really be familiar with, guys. Here is Matthew chapter 24. I'm going to read Zechariah 9:14 one more time, just for reference, and I'm color-coding some things here so you can see this is what Zechariah is talking about. 9:14, and Yah shall appear for them, and his arrow the Messiah shall go forth like lightning, and the master Yah will sound the shofar for war, and he shall go with whirlwinds from the south. Listen to the words of the master. For then there shall be great distress, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor shall ever be. He's talking about after the abomination of desolation. We'll talk about that later, but that already happened. That happened a long time ago. After that, the world will be in great distress, has not been since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. And if those days, 2 days, 2,000 years from the time of Messiah, except this coming of the rider on the white horse, this coming of the beast of Revelation 13, wasn't built in a day. It took a couple of 100 years for that stuff to begin to happen. Listen to what he says. And if those days, 2 millennial days, were not shortened, it's not 2 millennial days. It winds up to be close to like 1.7 millennial days. No flesh would have been saved, but for the sake of the chosen ones, the citizens of the kingdom of Israel, of all ages, of everybody who will live through tribulation, because tribulation is not a 7-year or 1 year or 5-year thing. It's been going on since the abomination of desolation. Not a guy going into a temple at some time in the end, since people started inviting another God into their hearts. That's when that's when the abomination of desolation begins. If anyone then says to you, look, here is the Messiah, there's revival over here, don't believe it. For false messiahs like Tammuz and false prophets like the seventh beast shall rise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, which is exactly what Revelation 13 tells us. Why? Because they have the authority of the dragon to do so. And as to lead astray, if possible, This story is so close. It sounds so good that if you don't do your homework, if you don't test the spirits the way John tells us to test the spirits, even if you are the elect, it is possible to be led astray. Guys, we were all there. We were all there. To be led astray, if possible, even the chosen ones, because it looks like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. See, I have forewarned you. Well, he forewarned us here, but he also told us about it in Revelation, in multiple places. Verse 26, so if they say to you, look, he's in the desert, don't go out. Look, he's in the inner rooms, don't believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west. One more time, Zechariah 9:14. I'm right here, guys. So we just read. And here's Zechariah 9:14. So what happens to this one who is the bow, and Ephraim is the arrow, and Judah is the bow, and this Messiah is the sword? What happens? He goes forth like lightning. For as lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also shall be the coming of the Son of Adam. For wherever the dead body is, why? Because of bow and sword and arrow, there the vultures shall be gathered together. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Abba also has authority, greater authority. The beast, the dragon from the sea. And I stood on the sand of the sea, the nations. We read this already. And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, the pagan religions of the nations. Revelation 13:4. And they worshiped the dragon, Satan, the serpent, who gave authority to all religions of men. So all of those religions that go throughout history leading up to that seventh beast and the beginning of what that thing would become, who is being worshiped if you're part of that? The dragon from the sea. And we've all been tossed into the sea. Here's Isaiah chapter 27 and verse 1. In that day, Yah with his severe sword, who is the Messiah, we now know, great and strong, punishes Leviathan. Now that word T-A-N, deceiver, deception, you see it in the words, it's the same word as Satan, same core word as Satan. Leviathan is the dragon, the serpent. He punishes Leviathan, Satan, the Dagon, the Tanim, the fish god. This gets us all the way back to the fish god and Dagon. The fleeing serpent, Leviathan, that twisted serpent. And he, the coming Messiah, the sword, shall kill the monster that is where? In the sea, where the beast comes from the sea, and brings all of its authority to a religion that's going to mix everything, look like a lamb, but speak like a dragon, and lead, even if possible, the very elect of Abba astray. Job 41 verse 1. Would you draw out Leviathan, the dragon, the serpent, with a hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Would you put a cord through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Would he keep on pleading with you? Would he speak softly to you? Would he make a false covenant like the seventh beast would try to do with you, to be taken as a servant forever? Listen, you can't hook this thing. You're not going to hook this thing. You're not going to reel it in. And we cannot make a covenant with it as well. The bow and the arrow. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 19. This beast from the sea is going to, at some point, be destroyed. Here's the bow. Here's the bow and arrow. Here's the sending out of Ephraim, the sending out of Judah. And he said to them, this is in multiple places, I just picked this one. Messiah says to the followers, follow me, and I shall make you fishers of men. Well, where do you fish? In the sea. In the sea. Matthew 13, verse 47. Again, the reign of heaven, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was thrown into the sea and gathered some of every kind, which when it was filled, they drew to shore, and they sat down together and took the good in containers and threw the rotten away. What are we? Fishers of men. Why? Because the beast from the sea has created something brand new that is bringing all sorts of men into it. And you and I have been sent out like bows and arrows, and Messiah is coming like a sword. You and I to pluck them out, to bring them out, to talk to as many as we can, to share truth, to open up our eyes before the Mashiach comes, to not be overcome, but instead be overcomers. Revelation 19 and verse 11, and I saw heaven open, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on him was called trustworthy and true, and in righteousness he judges and fights. And his eyes were like a flaming fire, and his head were many crowns, and having a name that had been written, which no one had perceived except himself, and having been dressed in a robe dipped in blood. And his name is called the Word of Elohim. Abba's word is a two-edged sword. And the armies of heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that he should smite the nations of the sea. And he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. Chapter 19, same chapter, verse 20. I'm just skipping some verses for time. I'm almost out of time. And I saw the beast, the nations, the religions, and the kings, those nations of the earth and their armies, gathered together to fight he who sat on the horse and his army. This fight isn't just an event that's going to happen at the end of the age. This fight has been going on for 1.7 millennial days, about 1,700 years. This fight with this beast, with this serpent from the sea, and the religions of all the nations that are balled up into this new thing now that looks kind of close, sounds kind of close, even uses the very thing called the Word of God, but speaks like a dragon. And the beast, the religion of the beast, was seized, and with him the false prophet, those who spoke on behalf of the beast religion, who worked signs in his presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. We went over what all of that means. The two were thrown alive into the lake burning with sulfur. And the rest, all of those that followed the beast, all of those that followed the beast, all of those that did not test the spirits, all of those that followed the religion that came from one place to the other, that didn't take the time, didn't have an ear to hear, all of those were killed with the sword which came from the mouth of him who sat on the horse. He kills Leviathan and all the authority Leviathan has. This is equal weights and measures, because this is what Leviathan chapter 13 says he did to the saints. He overcame them. Here's wisdom. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. And here it is. Here's equal weights and measures. What's Abba going to do? He's going to kill him with the sword. They were killed with the sword which came out of the mouth of him who sat on the horse. Equal weights and measures. And all the birds were filled with their flesh. Now, I know I'm getting kind of excited, but that's crazy stuff. That's crazy, crazy stuff. There it is. There it is. Which one's true? Which one's true? Is it that there's some guy coming in the future, some political leader, Trump, or some other president, or viceroy, or whatever title it is, some other person's going to come to a temple built in Jerusalem? I mean, look at that, the trouble they're in right now there. Look at all the stuff that's going on right now there. Could you imagine they try to build a temple over there? Oh my goodness! But let's just say let's give a benefit of the doubt. Is that the story, or is that the deception? Is that to get us to look in a direction? That's not really the direction. What's going on in Israel is not going to bring the Messiah back. It is important that there are Jews in Jerusalem, but that's not what the story is. The story is he's coming to save his people from all over the world. That's the story that's coming. Anyway, I thought you guys would be interested in that. Kind of neat. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to join us tomorrow morning for our Hidden Manna, bright and early. And, of course, this weekend, not Hidden Manna, Morning Manna, bright and early. And this weekend, Friday night, Brother Max and I around 7:30 for our Hidden Manna. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that study. Go over it again. Listen to the notes. Shoot me a line if you have any questions about it. And just check this stuff out for yourself. It's out there. If you got the time to take it and run it down and research it, you'll see it. Guys, in the meantime, have an awesome, awesome night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell and give us a thumbs up. Guys, in the meantime, Yah bless and shalom.